Hi everyone, I'm Veera Brown, visiting scholar at the University of California, Riverside and assistant professor at Istanbul Medeniyet University. Today I will talk about fabulation of alternate parallel universes, utopia in Turkish science fiction. What if there were other universes just like ours and we can meet uncountable versions of our beloved ones who passed away in this world? A mirror or reverse version of our reality is not so far and right here. In recent times, interdimensional travel and alternate reality gained prominence in science fiction film series like Stranger Things, Travelers, OA, Black Mirror, and Fringe. The parallel universe or multiverse concept traces back to Margaret Cavendish's blazing word in the 17th century. Feminist science fiction authors have gone further exploring non-binary gender and fluid gender identities and queer features since genres in Zoology in 1960s. However, it reached its peak point with the cyberpunk tradition. Cyberpunk's white masculine and heterosexual forms are changed by the parallel universe of feminist cyberpunk writers like Pat Callaghan, Kate Ecker, Melissa Scott, Marge Pierce, who focused on diverse forms from feminist and queer perspectives. Queer theory converses with science fiction's imaginative production of sometimes utopian futurities, Lottie 17, about non-binary single-sex female versions like in Gilman's Herdent and Griffith's Emily. Departing from Donna Haraway's note that the boundary between science fiction and social reality is an optical illusion, 149, I argue that science fiction explores queer worlding by offering alternate sexuality in the utopian portrayal of gender-friendly universes. Şeyda Aydin is the first Turkish feminist and queer science fiction author who speculates alternative parallel universes in The Woman in the Other Universe, 2019, which speculates a neo-futuristic utopian universe called Nera, and it is reversely reflected homophobic and transphobic retro cyberpunk, this queer utopian parallel universe called Antero. Science fiction and queer theory frequently share both dystopian view of the present and a utopian hope for the future, Pearson 159. That Aydin portrays both dystopian and utopian views of queer science fiction in her novel. I examine how queer sexualities and human normativity in a genderless utopian universe challenge dystopian social orders and homophobia. I discuss intersections between feminist cyberpunk and queer theory, exploring how Turkish queer science fiction speculatively represents alternate constructions of gender identity in a cyberpunk future through breaking the sexist walls in gender-constructed culture. Aydin focuses on the impact of gender on the lives of women by rethinking the problematics of Turkish science fiction's straight heteronormative discourse. The novel demonstrates how non-Western alternative features of feminist science fiction offer new forms of family and gender that the novel questions the importance of what is to be a genderqueer individual. As Levine claims, women's cyberpunk novels reflect the problematic positioning of mythology and folklore with feminist thought. Feminists in general do not seem happy with either mythology or religion, and within cyberpunk there is little room for the goddess, 130. Aydin criticizes patriarchal mythologies by creating her own mythological figure, a giant raven that represents goddess of nature, universe, and memory, who watches over two queer women lovers, Veera Virtanen and Eeva Van Rooyen'i, in the novel. The genius chorus represented by the raven was inspired by Mainin raven, the memory and the mind in Norse mythology, and it protects the love of queer women throughout the story. Following Haraway's cyborg world, Aydin's utopian universe is a kind of cyberspace about social and bodily realities in which people are not afraid of permanently partial identities and contradictory standpoints, 179. So, as Hollinger comments, queer marks a utopian space, which is perhaps also an ironic space inhabited by subjects in persons who are not bound by refined definitions and expectations, and in which bodies, desires, and gender-sex behaviors are free-floating and constant play. Thus, Haraway's utopian cyborg figure offers potential of utopian queer, 33. Aydin, creating such two opposite parallel universes, utopia and dystopia, criticizes the homophobic attitudes of our world by creating a hope with her utopian Neda, which resembles Haraway's cyborg world in which gender might be global identity at all. 180. So Aydin depicts a utopian future in which we become fluid, being both material and opaque. Haraway 153. The novel starts with film writer Veera mourns for her 13-year partner Eeva, who died due to cancer in Neda, which means valuable, where non-sexist, queer, transgender and all sexes live together in peace. So in order to find her lover, Veera travels into Ontario, where people get accustomed to living in a capitalist and imperialist world with hunger, anger, hatred, revenge, violence, racism, homophobia, transphobia, femicide, wars, contagious viruses, diseases, biological weapons, environmental collapse, patriarchal regimes, economic and gender inequalities, child abuse, animal torture, and unequal human race. In this other dimension, a different reflection of Eeva continues to exist is a famous actress and movie star who dedicated to saving world children from AIDS. Aydin contrasts Ontario with its parallel universe Neda, a perfect gender-queer utopia which is ruled by peace and gender equality. Inhabitants of Neda even call each other with non-gendered words like dear or beloved. Aydin also anticipates some counter-alternative future in Neda, such as the most culturally and economically developed country is the state of African continental integrity, which with its best doctors finds treatment and cures for all diseases and viruses, and the universe ends wars by closing the last army factory in the world. Aydin 73. Aydin's queer future is no longer curtailed, whether through death from AIDS, HIV, or via the policing and delegitimization of deviant desires. Latin 5. However, Ontario depicts Africa worse than now surrendered with AIDS, which is identified with homosexuality and other diseases, after the world witnessed 4 great wars, ecological and economic collapse. As Elderman says, queer is a zone of possibilities 114, and Aydin is a third-wave feminist cyberpunk writer offers another discursive horizon, another way of thinking the sexual with her lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transsexual diverse characters. Aydin creates genderqueer families without a nuclear-bound family. Eeva's act transportation allows Veera to have a daughter in a more modern world, Neda, where transgender, gays, lesbian, and other sexes also can have children by ultimate technology which frees women from the tyranny of their sexual reproductive roles, Firestone 13, and also free men from their boundaries of nuclear reproduction. Thus, Aydin's utopian alternate world is reproductive hope for gays and transgender. However, Veera's manager, a black transgender woman, is reflected in an unhappy male body in homophobic and transphobic Ontario, where sex change surgeries are banned years ago, and homosexual and transsexual lives are excluded, beaten, even killed if they do not choose to hide their sexual orientation. 98. The novel depicts what will happen if we could open a portal to a parallel universe that is entirely opposite to our reality. A group of scientists in the novel tries to open a Stranger Things-style gateway to a parallel universe. Physicists opened a triangular door hung in the air on the front of 3-meter machine. It was floating like a sea of mercury. It was like a mirror when it appeared completely, and when Veera looked at the door, she could see multiple shading reflections of her 133. For some reasons, the door only allows it to pass if it is a woman standing in front of it, and it works like this. The door only opens to a single word dimension, where the person doesn't exist. Fate resembles a pyramid that makes the transition to the alternate dimension, which is dark and dangerous, that Veera becomes upside down when she meets her lover Eeva, who is replaced and changed by the patriarchal society. Eeva uploads her previous memory from Neda through consciousness transfer when the two falls in love again. However, in that homophobic Ontario, the media and news start defamation campaign on Eeva for her lesbian affair. Eeva becomes on the verge of losing her career and even suffer from harassment and violence by the public. Veera can't stand seeing her like that and decides to return to Neda in order to save her life of Eeva from lynching by the society, for which Eeva decides to save the children from AIDS thanks to Veera, who brings the cure vaccine from Neda. The novel concludes when the couple reunites and begins to live in Neda with their posthuman daughter Eevee, who is superior to humans by representing love and Norse goddess of forbidden loves. So being born from two mothers, from two eggs, from different universes, Eevee becomes time and dimension traveler and like goddess-like post-human, changes the ugly consciousness of human beings and ends the gender bias forever in Antero in AYDIN'ın third novel Fragmented Reflections. AYDIN shows that as women we cannot escape from the constructed binary conflicts of gender even in other universe zones in the future until borders among the different colors of sexes end. Thus I conclude that in order to live in a more borderless gender-free future, we should recognize new gender kinds and identities outside the binary gender markers of women and men. Thank you so much.